Chapter 5: The Ex with a Hidden Agenda. I had barely finished my third cup of coffee when the storm started brewing. Not outside, but in my inbox. From Natalie.Ellis, Elwish Keorg, subject, hope we can talk. Amelia, I know things have been complicated. I just want the chance to clear the air. There's so much you don't know, and I think we owe it to each other to have one honest conversation. Please, meet me for coffee, just once. Natalie, I read the message twice, then a third time. My stomach churned like I'd swallowed a blender. The gall of this woman. After everything, after the lawsuit, the letter, which I still wasn't convinced she didn't send, after helping dismantle my marriage brick by brick, she wanted coffee? I shouldn't have replied. But something about the phrasing, there's so much you don't know, itched at my nerves like a splinter under skin. 10 minutes later, I texted, fine, 1 hour, noon, at Orson's on 5th, come alone. Orson's was one of those coffee shops that tried too hard to be cool. Mismatched furniture, pour-over menus longer than their food offerings, and baristas with ironic tattoos they refused to explain. I sat by the window, tapping my fingers against the mug of cinnamon chai I wasn't drinking. Every time someone walked in, I tensed. When Natalie arrived, she looked soft. Not weak, she never was, but like she'd aged in fast forward. The fire she used to radiate had dimmed, replaced by something quieter. Wary. Thanks for coming, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. You've got 5 minutes. She gave a tired smile. Straight to the point. That was always your thing. No, my thing was loyalty, I snapped. You remember loyalty, Natalie? The thing you shattered when you helped my husband lie to me? She looked down, fiddling with the paper sleeve on her latte. I didn't help him lie. I just didn't stop him. I stared, silent. You're right, she continued, voice low. About the house, about the surgery. He shouldn't have taken your home from me, but he didn't just do it for me. Oh, right, he did it for honor, because you saved him once, I quoted bitterly. She flinched. That's not the full story. Then start talking. Natalie leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. Ryan's accident 4 years ago? The one he said was a motorcycle crash? I nodded slowly. He wasn't alone that night. He was with me. We weren't just old friends, Amelia. We'd reconnected. Briefly. My breath hitched. I ended it. I swear, she rushed. But he was reckless. That night he crashed. We'd fought. He stormed off. I followed him. I was the one who pulled him out of the wreck. I called 911. I stayed until the ambulance came. And after, he said he owed me everything. I sat back, stunned. You cheated, I whispered. Before the house, before the surgery. I never touched him after that night, she said, eyes glassy. I told him to stay with you, but he changed. He said he couldn't keep pretending, that saving him meant I owned a piece of him. The words sat heavy in the air. So this wasn't about gratitude, I said. It was guilt. Natalie nodded, and control. Ryan can't stand feeling powerless. He had to give me something to balance the debt. I gritted my teeth. So he gave you our home, she swallowed. I didn't ask for that. He offered it before I even knew. When I found out, it was too late. I studied her face. She wasn't lying, at least not about everything. And the lawsuit? Her lips pressed into a thin line. I didn't file it. What? It wasn't me. It was my attorney. I mentioned in passing once that I'd helped with the down payment years ago before you even got married. He ran with it, thought he was protecting me in case Ryan tried to rescind support. Support. Money. Again, it was all about money. I'm not some villain, Amelia, she whispered. I'm just someone who made a terrible mistake and keeps paying for it. For the first time since our lives collided, I almost believed her. Almost. When I got back to Noah's, he was sanding a piece of walnut wood for a custom headboard commission. Shirt sleeves rolled, hair a mess, sawdust clinging to his arms like freckles. He looked up. You okay? I hesitated, then shook my head. No, but I will be. I told him everything. He didn't interrupt, just listened, nodding occasionally, his jaw tightening when I mentioned the accident. When I was done, he said only one thing. She's still hiding something. You think? I know the type. People like Natalie don't reach out unless they want something. She's not trying to fix the past, she's managing the future. I turned the words over in my mind all night, and sure enough, by morning I found out what she wanted. A voicemail from Ryan. Amelia, I know you met with Natalie. She told me. God, I screwed up. I'm selling the apartment. I want to make things right. She said she's leaving the city and I don't want to lose you too. I stared at my phone, pulse racing. He still didn't get it. I didn't want him to grovel. I didn't want him to sell his life off for penance. I just wanted the truth. And somewhere beneath all this, that was still missing. Because Natalie wasn't just back for coffee and apologies. She was leaving town, quickly, quietly. And people don't flee unless they're running from something or someone. Chapter 6: Boundaries and Bruises. Sometimes the bruises you carry aren't on your skin. They live in your voice when it cracks, in the silence between sentences, in the way your hand hesitates before reaching for something that used to feel like yours. And ever since Natalie's confession, I couldn't stop noticing mine. I saw them when I passed my old favorite bookstore and realized I hadn't walked in since Ryan sold our house. I heard them in my own voice when I answered calls with a brittle hello, like I was bracing for another hit. I felt them when I saw a woman helping her husband fix a flat tire and realized I no longer even remembered what it was like to be on the same team as someone. Except, maybe, I was starting to remember. Noah had been consistent, gentle, patient, dangerous in the slowest, most unsuspecting way. Not because he tried to be charming, but because he didn't. He just was. After the meeting with Natalie, I didn't go home to cry or scream into a pillow. I went to the garage where Noah was sanding a new table leg and humming something under his breath. I stood in the doorway for a moment, unsure of why I was even there. "Can I help?" I asked. He looked up, blinked in surprise, and then nodded. "Yeah, you want to hold this in place?" I did. I held the wood steady while he worked, our hands brushing occasionally. We didn't talk much, didn't need to. By the time he finished, I realized something. That quiet, that wasn't absence. It was peace. The next morning, my peace shattered with a single knock. I opened the door to find Ryan standing there, a duffel bag over his shoulder, and desperation clinging to him like sweat. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping the screen door locked. He laughed bitterly. "Natalie's gone, disappeared, took the settlement money and left town." I blinked. "You gave her a settlement?" "She said she was going to file a defamation suit," he muttered, rubbing his jaw. "Said the stress from the public fallout was affecting her recovery. Her lawyer was threatening to leak things that would ruin my career." My stomach dropped. "You paid her off," I said flatly. "To protect myself. And you," he added quickly. I raised an eyebrow. "You really think dragging me through lawsuits, lying about our finances, and selling our wedding home was protecting me?" He stared at me. "You don't get it." "No," I said. "You don't get it. You sold everything we built because your ex manipulated you with guilt, and now you're here because you've been burned." He looked down, shame flashing across his face. "I have nowhere to go." I crossed my arms. "Not my problem anymore." But then the old me, soft, naive, stupidly loyal, whispered, "He's still your husband, Amelia." That whisper almost cracked my resolve. Almost. "You should go," I said. "I don't want to make this uglier than it already is." He blinked. "So that's it?" "That's boundaries, Ryan. You crossed everyone I ever had. Now I'm drawing new ones." He scoffed and turned away, but not before muttering, "You're still hiding behind someone else's generosity." My hand flew to the doorframe. "Excuse me?" He turned. "Noah, the guy who took you in. Don't pretend like you're doing this all on your own. You always need someone, Amelia. That's the problem." I stepped outside, the door swinging shut behind me. "You think you know me? You only ever loved the version of me who didn't need anything, who was self-sufficient, low maintenance, quiet. The moment I asked for partnership, for honesty, you resented me." He flinched. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" I whispered. We stood in silence. The wind picked up, scattering leaves across the driveway. Then I said what I should have said months ago. "You don't get to accuse me of being helped when you spent our entire marriage pretending we were partners while making decisions behind my back." He didn't reply. He just turned and walked away. Later that night, I found Noah sitting on the back porch, staring out at the trees beyond his property. He didn't say anything when I sat beside him, just handed me a cup of tea. "I told him to leave," I said after a while. "I know. I saw him drive off." "Do you think I'm weak for letting him get this far?" Noah looked at me, eyes steady. "I think you're someone who gave too much for too long. That's not weak. That's loving the wrong person too hard." The words hit like a balm. "You ever love someone like that?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "Yeah." "She hurt you?" "Worse, she used me to hurt someone else." I turned to him, heart aching at the quiet confession. And you let her? For a while, he said, until I realized that forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the door. Sometimes it just means locking it and walking away. I looked down at my hands. They always say love is patient, kind, forgiving, but nobody talks about the bruises love leaves when it's poisoned. He reached over, gently covering my hand with his. Then maybe it wasn't love at all. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't flinch from someone's touch. I leaned into it, into him. Not because I needed to be saved, but because I was finally learning what it meant to be seen. Chapter 7, The Burn Before the Rise. You never realize how many bridges you've crossed until they're all on fire behind you. That's what the week felt like. Ash in the air, smoke in my throat, and me, still walking forward, because turning back wasn't an option anymore. After Ryan left my doorstep with his tail between his legs, I thought the worst was behind me. I thought the sharpest betrayal had already happened. That Natalie disappearing with the money, leaving Ryan destitute, was the final blow. That karma had been delivered neatly, like a signed package. But karma doesn't send tracking updates. It shows up in the dark, digging into places you thought were safe. I was in the workshop with Noah, helping him sand a tabletop, when I noticed his phone buzz 3 times in rapid succession. He ignored it, but something in the way his shoulders tensed made me pause. You okay? Yeah, he said quickly. Just spam. But when he stepped outside to take a call and didn't return for 10 minutes, I knew it wasn't spam. I waited, tried to be respectful, tried to pretend I wasn't quietly unraveling. When he finally came back in, his expression was carefully blank. Everything good? I asked. He gave me a look I couldn't read. That was my sister, he said. She works at the county clerk's office. I nodded slowly. And she flagged something weird. He pulled out a folded document from his back pocket and handed it to me. It was a scanned copy of a deed transfer. For the garage. My name was on it. I blinked. What is this? It's not just the garage, he said quietly. She found a record of a trust fund created 2 weeks ago, one with your name listed as the primary beneficiary. It's under an anonymous donor, but the funds came from a private health foundation tied to Natalie Black. I felt the world tilt under my feet. Are you saying Natalie gave me money? Now? He shook his head. No, I think she's using your name, either to hide assets or to implicate you. I swallowed hard, a metallic taste rising in my throat. This doesn't make any sense. No, he agreed, but it's real. I drove straight to the bank. I needed answers, needed proof that I wasn't being dragged into some criminal mess. The manager gave me a tight-lipped smile and ushered me into his office after confirming my identity. There's been some unusual activity, he said. A large deposit under your name, but the account was opened online and the credentials don't match your prior records. He turned his screen so I could see. The address listed was my old house with Ryan, my old email, my old signature. Someone was impersonating me. Can you trace who created this? I asked, heart thudding. We've already flagged it, he said. We're opening an internal investigation. If this is fraud, the authorities will need to be involved. As I left, my fingers shook against the steering wheel. I knew what this was. This was a trap. And the worst part, I didn't know if Natalie was working alone or if Ryan was in on it. That night, I sat across from Noah at the kitchen table. A single lamp glowed between us, casting golden shadows across his face. I should leave, I said, before whatever this is drags you down with me. He stared at me for a long time, then shook his head. You really think I care about a fraud claim? It's not just that, I whispered. This feels like something bigger, like someone's trying to bury me. His jaw tightened. Then let them try. You're not fighting alone. Something in me cracked. Not the bad kind of crack, the kind that lets the light in. I didn't realize I was crying until he stood and came to kneel beside me, pulling my hand into his lap. You're not your past, Amelia. And you're not powerless. But if someone's trying to burn your name down, we do what we've always done. I looked at him. We rebuild, he said softly. The next day, I returned to Ryan. I found him in a shabby motel on the outskirts of town, his duffel bag by the door, his face hollowed out by loss. He looked surprised when I knocked. Back for another round? No, I said calmly. I'm here for answers. He rubbed his face. I don't have any. She used my name, Ryan, in a trust fund, in a bank account. This wasn't just a scam on you. She's building a web, and I'm caught in it. Something flickered in his expression. Regret, or guilt, or both. You didn't know? I pressed. Or didn't want to know? She told me. She told me it was just a shell, a way to protect the money from her ex-husband. I froze. Her what? Ryan blinked. She was married before me. Briefly, some rich guy with political ties. She said he used to blackmail her, said if I helped her hide the money, it would finally end. My stomach turned. None of this was about love. It was about leverage. She hadn't just used Ryan. She'd used me as a name, a face, a ghost to hide behind. Do you still have her laptop? I asked. He hesitated, then pointed toward the bag. I found it. Dead battery. But with the right charger, this wasn't over. It was just beginning. That night, I went back to Noah's, laptop in hand, heart pounding. This was the burn before the rise, and I was done being burned. Chapter 8, The Woman I Became. If someone had shown me a snapshot of this moment a year ago, me, sitting in a modest courtroom wearing my mother's old blazer, clutching a laptop that held enough secrets to ruin 3 lives, I would have laughed, bitterly. Because back then, I was just his wife, just Amelia West, the woman who once trusted a man enough to build a life around him, only to be erased from it with the same efficiency used to sign a check. But this version of me, she was something else. The laptop had cracked open more than just encrypted files. It cracked open the truth. Natalie Black, professional con artist, had used Ryan as her getaway vehicle. She wasn't sick, at least not in the way he thought. There had been a surgery, yes, but it was elective, cosmetic. A way to reinvent herself, just like she'd done in 3 other states under different aliases. The trust fund in my name? A laundering method. The health foundation? Fake. The scam? Beautifully layered and designed to burn all the evidence behind her, starting with me. But Natalie had made one fatal mistake. She assumed I would stay broken. Noah sat beside me in the courthouse. His fingers brushed mine lightly, grounding me, steadying me as I stared across the room at Ryan. He looked like a man drowning, a public defender at his side, shirt wrinkled, expression torn. Because as much as he'd been a fool, I didn't fully believe he'd been evil, just blind. The district attorney nodded at me, signaling it was time. I rose, walked to the stand, and for the first time told my full truth. I gave up everything for my husband, I said clearly, voice steady. I trusted him with more than just my love. I trusted him with my future, my dignity, my name. And he gave that name to a woman who was never sick, who never needed saving. I paused, locking eyes with Ryan. She didn't save you, Ryan. She used you. And the worst part, you let her. You let her twist our past into something disposable, because it was easier to play the hero in her story than admit you were the villain in mine. A murmur swept through the courtroom. I didn't blink. And when she disappeared, when she left you penniless and me accused of fraud, you still couldn't see the truth. You let your guilt make you stupid. But I won't be your scapegoat anymore. The trial wasn't about Ryan, technically. It was about the money trail, the fraud, the digital evidence Natalie had left behind. But in that moment, I wasn't testifying for the court. I was testifying for me, for every woman who'd been discarded, rewritten, blamed, for every time I'd questioned my worth in the mirror of someone else's priorities. This was the woman I'd become. And she was fireproof. Weeks later, Natalie was caught in Arizona, using a different name, living in a penthouse paid for by yet another shell company. Ryan's charges were dropped, eventually. He'd been duped, not partnered in crime. He sent me a letter, a full page of apologies. I never replied. Some ghosts aren't worth resurrecting. I stood in front of the little garage I now co-owned with Noah. The sunlight spilled through the windows, casting golden beams across the new shelves we'd built. My hands were stained with paint. My hair smelled like cedar and hope. Ready? Noah asked, handing me a warm mug of coffee. Almost, I smiled, then nodded at the new sign above the garage. West and Walker Woodworks. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't corporate, but it was mine. I didn't think I'd make it here, I said quietly. There were moments I didn't even want to try. He studied me for a long time, then tucked a piece of hair behind my ear. You didn't just make it, he murmured. You rebuilt. Better. I leaned into him, let the silence settle. Then I looked up with a soft grin. You're not still waiting for a thank you kiss for that day at the diner, are you? He smirked. Only if you mean it this time. I do, I said, heart full. Every piece of me does. And when I kissed him, it wasn't a kiss of rescue. It was a kiss of return to myself, to love, to the future I was building. Not out of ashes, but from something stronger, the woman I became. Thank you for listening. But the journey doesn't end here. Amelia's story is one of survival, strength, and the relentless pursuit of justice. The twists and turns may have slowed, but they'll never truly stop. Will she continue to rise from the ashes, or will the past come knocking once more? Make sure to subscribe to stay updated on all future stories and secrets. Stay tuned for more suspense, more drama, and moments you won't forget.